they lose, I call them April babies, 'cause they fools. We up, see, like a paraplegic, a parallel park, a red and yellow thing, old school Atlanta Hawk. Alright, we're live. Alright. Hello. In this video, we're gonna be going over how to build your first iOS app. Oh my god, I can hear myself. Let me stop that. Hold on. Alright. And Sean Carter is a little bit too loud right now. Okay. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to essentially get all set up with iOS development. I am going to show you what I would want to do or want to know or need to know essentially to get started. And this is like the biggest shortcut that you can take, really, because a lot of people are like, when you start watching videos, when you watch videos like these, where it's like your first whatever for absolute beginners, you get kind of lost in the weeds of the wrong things, in my opinion. And a lot of the times, if you go out and you try to learn things on your own, you end up going down and you start trying to learn, like, essentially the vocabulary of what you're even trying to learn. So that makes it hard. And when somebody's teaching you, if they go over concepts that you're not actually applying, like you're not actually using, then it becomes even harder to figure out how anything that you're being taught is relevant, and it's just kind of hard to retain that information. At least that's how I felt. So the plan is to show you all the practical stuff that you need. Everything that's practical, just so that you can start. So yeah, let's do that. Now, one requirement with iOS development, this is the hardest thing for most people to overcome around the world, essentially. And it's the fact that you do need to have an Apple computer. You cannot do this with a PC. Yes, there are ways that you can make something work where you're able to essentially code on a computer that's not an Apple computer and transform it to do Mac-like stuff. Just, it's so much easier to just find the money and go buy a new computer. Go find the cheapest Apple computer that you can find, which is like an old Mac Mini, which I think they're going for about $600 now. So even older ones, secondhand ones, are going to be way more affordable. So do that. What's going on, Roshan? All right, so let me make sure that we switch back over to the right computer. All right, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna take y'all to like the very, very beginning. So you're signed into some type of Apple computer, right? And then what you need to do is you need to go to your app store. Did I hit the wrong thing? I did. This is not the app store. Okay. If the app store is not in your taskbar, like it's not for me, what you got to do is you have to type in App Store. And this is a shortcut for Spotlight. This feature is called Spotlight. You hold Command and then you hit the space bar, and you can search your entire computer using this. Yes. So the two requirements, you have to be for development. Oh, I can't wait for this. To become an iOS developer, there's two requirements. You need to have an Apple computer, and you have to have Xcode on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for the term Xcode. Let me talk about this real quick, just so that you understand what you're seeing, because I don't expect you to know any vocabulary. I just want to make sure that everything kind of makes sense. This is an app for your computer, or some people, we still call them programs, whatever. This is just like Notion, Chrome, right? So it's an app. It is not your programming language. It's also spelled very specifically like this. I hate it when I see somebody put X, capital C, ODE. No, don't do that. Don't do that. I hate that. Yeah, long time no see. It's been a long time since I've been on here. It's been a minute. What else? Yeah, so make sure you spell Xcode right. It's just like any other word. This is a branding thing. I just keep it, please. Next, this is kind of like, you could think this is called an IDE. It's an integrated development environment. You don't need to memorize that. It doesn't matter. Just know that when you hear IDE, think for you, that means Xcode. And Xcode is kind of like Microsoft Word in the sense that Microsoft Word is where you put all of your writing when you're like typing up a paper or whatever, like when you're in school or at work, whatever. And that's where we're going to be. That's the tool, that's the program, that's the application that we're using to write code. Microsoft Word lets you do some fancy things to the font, right? Xcode lets you do some fancy things like being able to actually run the code that you write. It's not just a place that you write it, it actually makes it run as well. So that's what Xcode is. You can take a look at it, go through all the stuff. Xcode, in my opinion, you'll like, if you talk to somebody that did not start in iOS, they are going to say Xcode is just absolutely terrible. If you talk to somebody that is in iOS, they'll say Xcode kind of sucks sometimes. I think that's a fair summation of that. What else? But yeah, so we're going to download Xcode like Microsoft Word, right? So we're going to download Xcode, which is where we're able to write our code. You hit this. Well, it's not going to be this. It's going to be like an install button. Download that. And then you have to go through the setup process. If you can't make it through the setup process, then you may not be technically adept to handle this. If you can't install an app onto your machine by going to the App Store and hitting install, and then if something comes up, which that's fine if something comes up, but if you can't figure out how to fix that, this is not the field for you. That's all being a programmer is dealing with that type of situation. You thought something was going to happen, it didn't, and then now you have to go fix it and figure out why. It's just like a big ass scavenger hunt or something. All right, so you download Xcode, then you open it. It looks something like this. This should be bigger. You won't have any previous projects over here. Then you create a new project. I think it may start off multi-platform for you. What you really want to do, because I actually don't even know what all of this does when it does multi-platform. I mean, it's kind of, it says it kind of in the name, but at the same time, I don't know exactly what that means for the project settings. So just make sure that you choose iOS, and it should look something like this, depending on when you're watching this. Like every year they do something a little bit different for Xcode. There's small tweaks. Apple's pretty on top of their game with design, so it looks a little bit different, but just look for iOS. Make sure it's applications. Yours might be scrolled down or something like that. It might be hidden. Scroll all the way to the top. It should be app. You select it, you hit next. And then here is where you're gonna like name your you're gonna name your project. Oh, that's my kids. Hold up, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. All right. Now, just like any other time that you need to create something new, you gotta name your project. What do we want to call this? We'll just call it something simple. Food picker. Bam. Your team might say none. It should give you some type of personal option in here. I honestly don't know what to tell you if nothing comes up and it does and there's no obvious way to do it. But you should be able to choose a team. Organization identifier. This is just com dot. I think yours is gonna say maybe example right here or Apple. Maybe it's example. I can't remember. Anyways, just change this to like whatever your name is. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't actually do anything. You could just put your name, right? Or if you have a website or a website idea, or idea for a website that you want to potentially build in the future or something like that, you could put it like that's the name of the website. It'd be like kiloloco.com is my website. So you would put com dot whatever your website name is. So it's like backwards or whatever. And then it ends up giving you this bundle identifier. This is like a unique ID for your app. So like once you use this, you technically like you I'll say you can't use it again on another app. You technically can because you could go and like delete it, but like if somebody else already has this identifier, I don't think it'll let you choose it. Something like that. For interface, just make sure it's selected as Swift UI. I'll talk about storyboards. I don't even know if I'll talk about storyboards in this video. This is like an old way of doing your UI, and this is the new current way. So Swift UI, the language should be Swift. Ideally, it should only say that. Testing system, this doesn't matter. We could do none just to kind of keep our project clean. Also, eventually we can, if you guys really like want to see more of this, what we can do is we can add tests into this app later. And then for storage, just none, because we're not going to be doing any storing to the phone itself. Okay, so next, and then you save this wherever. This is the folder that I'm saving mine in. It's called repos. You should probably, if you have this check mark, turn it on. If you do this, today can be the first day that you can say that you turned into a developer, in my opinion, because I'm self-taught, by the way. I taught myself. I didn't go to school for this. And that's kind of why I'm doing this, is because I want to be able to help people do the same thing that, like essentially learn to code and then essentially change their life. So that's what I want to do. I want to do for other people. I've already done it. So now I want it for you. Anyways, choose where you want to save it. I'll just save it to this same folder called Food Picker. You should get a project like this. This is gonna take a while. All right. Now, if I had to guess, seeing this might be like intimidating for you, especially like if you have stuff all open over here. Like this is like, so what you see right now, yeah. Now this feels like a lot. This feels like it would be a lot for somebody that can't like essentially read it right now. Um, that's how I feel with when I open up uh when I open up Photoshop. I open up Photoshop. It looks like, damn, there's so much stuff going on. I'll break it down real quick, in a way where you just know where your attention even needs to be, so you can just say, I'm going to ignore everything else, because this is what I look at when I'm working. Okay. Uh, this window right here, this area is like where your primary focus obviously should be, right? Like obviously, this over here, you can completely ignore all of this. You don't need to know any of this. This doesn't even need to show, right? And that's if it's even showing. So if it's showing, just go ahead and hide it. You don't even need to know. I almost never have to deal with it over here. If I do have to deal with it over here, it's because I'm like looking for something like file. This is all file related content. It has nothing to do with like what you're coding, except for over here. But like, just again, don't worry about this area. Just close for your stage right now. You do not need to even know. Okay. You don't really need to know any of these really. Um, Other than the fact that they allow you to control what's going on over here. This we could call kind of like a emulator slash simulator situation. It's a all it is a fake iPhone. But this one's actually not running. This is like a fake iPhone paint, like they're painting stuff on here. So this code is being ran like extremely quickly and then just being painted on here. But it doesn't like, it doesn't really run the way that it's supposed to. So this isn't like a real simulator, because there's another thing that we're going to have when we want to actually build this code. I'll get to it right now, but that one's actually called the simulator. So this one's called like your preview. And just think about it as it's being painted. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that, obviously, but this isn't the actual code, so don't trust it. You still have to run the code to make sure that things work as expected. And then this is also going to break down eventually. Like you're going to do something in your code and this is going to stop working. In some cases, it'll permanently stop working if you don't fix stuff. But yeah, just don't worry about this. Let's see. Next over here, we can break this down. So this right here, in case it's a little bit intimidating, right? This right here, food picker, is the name of your app, right? So that's this thing right here. Then it's in the food picker folder, so we see that. And then content view is the file that we're in, right? And then body is, this is where we have our cursor currently at. So if I put my cursor, if I click right here, it might say content view, or it might say preview right here. I think it's going to say content view if I click right here. No selection. Oh, it's a selection. So maybe this, oh, maybe it's not working. I don't know. But this is supposed to essentially show you like what your cursor is doing, or like where you're currently at. So if it, like when your project starts to balloon, this is where you would look to figure out like, okay, where am I at? And then you can look at like the different folders. Okay, is it in the products folder? What, like, where is it? And then you just like do stuff like that. Next we have our left pane. I don't know what these are called. Just, you know how like you don't know a person's address, you just know how to get there. Same thing. Um, yeah, this is where all your files are. So we're specifically on this tab right here, the project navigator. Project navigator. This is where you can see like all the different files that are in your project. You won't see the dot, like a dot Swift extension on it, or if you had like a dot JPEG, you wouldn't see that in here. Instead, you just get these images. Looks nicer, I guess. All right. We are in the content view. We're about to get into code because now I'm talking too much. What I'll show you is that this is the start point. This at main thing, uh, essentially is what's telling you what the start point is of an app. This is saying, hey, this is the main function that we want to run, and this is what encompasses the entirety of our app. So you can see all the code is represented right here. This is what runs our app, and we are inside a window group that's showing this content view. Content view, it happens to be the file name, but the file name and the thing that we're actually referring to, content view, do not necessarily have to be the same. Most people name them appropriately like this. Content view file is the same as the object that we're looking at, the piece of code. Okay. And this is saying we're gonna run or create this content view. So when you have the parentheses like that, saying like run. All right, and then this is what is supposed to be displayed on screen. So I'm gonna stop talking. We're gonna go ahead and run this. Well, I'm not gonna stop talking. I don't feel like stopping talking. Bro, are you back to Xcode? Remember your video about Little Castle? Little Castle. I don't know what that means, but yeah, I'm on. Okay, one thing. Make sure you go up here. This should be your app name. If you named it Food Picker or whatever you select it, just make sure it's right here. And then up here, it should say something. It probably says any iOS device. And this may be a little bit different. Yours might not say ARM64, depending on what kind of computer you're on. It might say like the x86 64. So just keep in mind there might be some differences. That's fine. What I want you to do is make sure that iPhone 16 under the iOS simulators is selected. So it should look like that. It doesn't have to be. If you really want to choose one of these, it really doesn't matter. But if you wanted your screen to look like my screen when you're trying to follow along, that's what you're gonna have to do. So I hit the play button. Up here, it's going to give you a status update of like what Xcode's doing. So if you want to know what's going on up here, just kind of look right here. It'll have one status update and then a number. Those are the different types of like jobs that it's working on. You could click the number and then it shows you like specifically what it's trying to do right now. Right now we're also full screen, so I'm going to shrink this. I am back on Xcode. Yes, Nikolai. For two primary reasons. I want to start teaching some people that are close to me how to code, and I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna just go through and make these videos. They're gonna be long, drawn out process, but whatever. It's free. There's that, and I have your best interest in mind. So yeah, you have to hear me ramble a little bit just so that you can get where you're going. Anyway, um, but yeah, so I want to teach people, and I actually did want to do it in Flutter, but I don't know enough about Flutter, and I've never been hired as a Flutter developer at a company. Um, so I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to teach people and telling the people that I'm close to that I can get them employed as a developer with Flutter when I haven't done that yet. I've done contracting jobs in Flutter. I haven't worked at a company that is Flutter, so I wouldn't be able to speak to it. And since iOS is like my strong point, and it actually is the easiest one to learn, this is the path that I'm going to essentially teach, because iOS is absolutely the easiest development that a person can experience, because I've touched a lot of different things and I haven't touched something that's as easy as iOS development, specifically iOS development, not Swift, iOS development. But iOS development in Swift, that is. All right. What's going on, Franklin? Okay, so on your computer, simulator should have opened up. This is the real simulator. This is going to pretend like it's an iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, that's kind of okay. You're supposed to run your code on an iPhone, and I'm going to tell you why, because I learned why it's important that you run your code on a physical device, because even though I had an iPhone at the time, this is when I was learning. I believe this was going to be my second app that I had created. And keep in mind that the apps that I created, the first one took about 3 weeks. Using a technology that a lot of people said were hard, I was able to implement it, and I was very happy with that. Um, it got on the App Store. The second app that I tried to implement, it was a timer type of app. Now, I was able to make the UI look all right. It wasn't terrible. It didn't look like it came from like it didn't look like a 1999 website, right? So it didn't look terrible, but I, I was able to make it look how I wanted to. I was able to implement all of the code that was needed to get everything to work, even notifications and everything. These are local notifications, so if you're aware, I wasn't like that skilled, but yeah, I was able to figure stuff out, and I had a working prototype. And then after I was like completely done, I was happy, everything was working on the simulator. I I plug in my physical device. I plug in my phone. It turns out that the way that I was coding up my timer is what was I doing? How did I do this? Well, I want to, because I really want to share it. What was it? It was using an actual timer. So there's a thing in the code. They're called objects. Like content view is an object, and I'll go over stuff like this, the vocabulary and stuff like that. I'll go over that. But just object, it's a way that a cluster of code kind of defines something. Think about it like as a way of describing something in code. So there's a timer object. There's a timer thing. There's something in code that allows you to control time, like be a timer. The timer object will continue to work if you background your app. And what I mean by that is, in the simulator, if I were to hit this, if I was to like click on a button or something like that, then I was to like hit the home button, because back then there was buttons on the phone. Um, back in my day. So if you were able to do that, then what would happen is the timer, the piece of code on your app would keep working as you would expect it. So if I hit a timer inside of my app, I close my app, and now I put it in my pocket, and I do something, and then I open my app. I open my app on my phone, and the timer should still be going in my head, right? Okay, when you use the timer object on a simulator, that's how it works. So I would be able to, I forgot how to lock this thing. I think it's over here. Okay, so I locked it, right? I would be able to lock it. I'd wait like, I don't know, like 2 minutes. I'd just like listen to music or go on social media. Then I'd unlock the phone, right? I went back in it. Oh, it's working, right? When I plugged in my phone, and I was so excited to have him on my phone, because I was like, damn, it's gonna start working. Like I'm getting good at this. It turns out the timer stops working in the background when you do this. When you go to the home screen, that's backgrounding your app. Like, you probably can't do it when you hit the home screen. That's backgrounding your app. It doesn't work like that on the actual device. So that's why it's important that you do code on, like you do run your code on a physical device, because things can be different. Like behaviors, like whole behaviors, the code will still work, everything will still like work, but the behavior might be different. So yes. All right, so now with that story, um what next? What should I teach you next? Okay, let's talk about the code itself, right? So, and we can adjust like panes, how big things are over here. Oh, also, you don't need to pay attention to any of this right now. Um, and it may look a different combination of ways, like, so, because there's ways to like hide and show over here, right? So yours may look completely different. Just keep that in mind, right? It might be hidden altogether. You can show it with this one right here. Um, the only thing that we're going to be interested in down here is just going to be this right pane, if anything, and that's only because I'm going to show you how to interact with the phone, and then show something down here to like essentially show you that the code is working in real time. Okay. But you don't need to look at anything right here right now. Sorry if that's confusing. Help me help you. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, and I'll try to work on that when I try to explain stuff. All right. Right now, what we're looking at is called Swift programming language code. So the name of the programming language is Swift. This is this concept is very similar to normal language, English, Spanish, China, like Mandarin stuff, whatever. Yeah, like the concept is the same. You can do almost anything any other programming language can do in your language, for the most part. Like, that's the idea, is that, each language can do essentially the same stuff. But some programming languages are just built specifically for a very particular thing. Just because it was built for a very particular thing doesn't stop people from just going and doing whatever the hell they want. And yeah, you'll learn about JavaScript. You probably ran into JavaScript already. JavaScript's not the problem. It's the environment around JavaScript. Some men just like to watch the world burn. All right. Anyway, Yeah, we're looking at Swift code. Lots of different keywords on here. First thing that you'll probably notice at the top, this looks kind of interesting, different, right? All grayed out. Oh, also your UI might look a little bit different. Keep that in mind too. So you can reach this screen. You can reach this screen because I hate when you're like watching a video and then you're just like, but his is cooler and now I want to do that and like no, pay attention. I'll show you where to get it at the end of the video. So if you actually follow along and learn this stuff, then that could be your reward. How about that? Yes, I think so. All right, go up here where Xcode is up here. If you don't see Xcode, it's because like you have like simulator right here. Like it's whatever is in focus, and what that means is like whatever you last interacted with. So if you're the last thing that you interacted was the simulator, you're not going to see Xcode up here. Click Xcode, hit it, and then from here, what do you got? Settings. So you can also use the command and comma thing to open up settings, which is also how I opened it up so fast when I first did it. So you hit go to settings. Then you may be looking at, oh my God. Jesus. That was crazy. What the, my eyes. Holy shit. Anyway, it's probably this or this. Hopefully it was this. Oh my God. You're not going to have this, obviously. I'm not that important to where Kilo Loco would be in here. I'll show you how to get this stuff later. I made them myself. Please just put it in dark mode. Oh God. Anyway, that's how you don't get trapped here. This is so not important. But I made mine for a reason, so y'all just stuck with it. Anyway, we're looking at what's up here. Anything that's prefixed. It doesn't necessarily even have to be at the very front of this line. Anything just after a double slash, whenever a double slash is just left by itself, anything after in that line is going to be considered a comment. A comment is just a way that you can write your notes on on your document that has your code in it. So this is code, right? Anything that's just regular. And then anything with a comment is like kind of like you writing notes. Like if you were taking your notes, right? Now, for iOS development and Xcode, it automatically puts all this stuff up here for you. In other areas of programming, that's not the case. This is kind of all dragged out, like in some in some in a lot of different areas. You just start writing code on line one. This is a little bit different. Just thought I should share that with you because it was on my head. It was on my mind. So let's see. These are comments, notes in your code. Doesn't matter what you write in here. Put in, whatever, profanity, whatever you want. Don't put in profanity. um, or I mean, you can, but like, just careful, obviously, with that habit. If you go work somewhere, right? But yeah, regular code. You can turn it all into code that doesn't run. You could turn it into your notes just by doing command and then the forward slash or the question mark, whatever you want to call it. But that key, and then it comments it out. So just keep in mind that anything that's commented out, and not all comments look the same in different programming languages, but you only need to know Swift. Yeah, so when you comment it out, yeah, that means that that code is not going to run. So if it was working and then you comment it out and it stops working, now you know why. All right, so now we have a couple of keywords. Keywords are usually in this pink color. Whatever this import statement, whatever this word is on your screen, whatever the color that is, should be the same color as these words. These are your keywords. Keywords in programming languages are words that have a very unique purpose in your programming language. And it kind of allows you to structure your code and kind of have a understanding of like how things are supposed to look. Um, oh my bad, Franklin. Have you tried AI IDEs like Cursor? Nah. Um, I don't. I don't like AI for that. I like to use AI as a sounding board or as a like what is it called? Like a boilerplate. Like, hey, I need an app that does this, and since I know what I need, I can explain it, and then I could just get that boilerplate stuff out the way, and that kind of helps me move forward, you know? So I get all the boilerplate, get the stuff that I need, which is probably just on Stack Overflow, but I just wanted to, just write whatever I wanted. And then, like, now I have somebody that's responding to me. That's exactly what I need. So, yeah. What's up, Abdul? Hey, Kilo. Please start a beginner Swift UI and Swift tutorial series. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what this is. Um, I'm not going to teach you Swift, though. I'm not going to teach you Swift and Swift UI separately. Right now, that does not even matter. Okay? What matters most is for you to actually start working on a project that can actually be useful to like somebody, can make it onto the App Store, and has somewhat complex concepts covered, right? So, yeah, like I don't actually believe, and I said that a little bit earlier, probably before you joined, that that's the problem with a lot of teachers on YouTube, in my opinion, for code related things is like, I'm gonna teach you the basics and I'm gonna give you this course and whatever, and then what it does is it gives you all the concepts. It gives you like this big ass like vocabulary. Like, okay, we're gonna learn what imports are, and we're gonna learn what structs are, and we're gonna look at structs versus classes, and this and that. And it's just like, I don't even know why the hell I care about a struct. What is that? I don't even. Yeah, thanks. Now I know that. Oh, a class or a struct, anything that's an object, can describe a piece of code, and I could have a pet, and it could have a variable and this and that. And it's just like, but like, how do you use it though? Because like, who cares? Who cares at the end of the day, right? All I need to know is how something can work, and then I can pick up and learn all the information that I need to know as I go. That's the way that I feel. It's like, get your hands on and get as dirty as possible so that then you could even know what you need to know. And then there's obviously the stuff that you don't know that you need to know, right? But this is like a much better starting point. Get your hands dirty, build something, and then keep building, and then improve that something, and then keep improving it, and then just keep improving it. And then maybe if there is some reason to either there's success on the project, or you are confident that there won't be success, or you just don't want to continue any further, that's when you can start a second project. You don't need 50 fucking beginner apps. Oh, build this from scratch and that from scratch. Like, who the fuck? What? No, if I see that you built like 50 apps, like, sure, you watched 50 YouTube videos. Good for you. But like, do you actually understand like how this works? Right? Like, I would much rather I'd much rather you have one really large project that covers all kinds of stuff in it than a million little projects, like, cuz then it's like there's not enough time that you spent on each project to even for you to even understand how that concept, that primary concept that you want it to build out, might interact with this other thing over here that you weren't expecting. So, like, doing a more full, complete project, even if it's just one project, like if you had a GitHub, and that's kind of the way that I think I might push people is, I want your GitHub to have one project on it. I want it to be the only, maybe the only thing that you have on GitHub. And I want that project to be so cool, and I want the history to all be there. I want you to like cover networking requests and maybe persistence, and like, well, if we even get to that level, like what if we did like building out a caching layer or something like that. Um Maps, I don't know, like all of these things into one, and then making it a usable single app that also is functional and helpful. Like, that's kind of cool. That's actually kind of cool. And what if that was like your only app? Like, I promise you that nobody is looking at your, like, you have to remember that like when you go for these jobs, hundreds, hundreds, not tens, hundreds of people are applying for this very same jobs, especially when it's an entry level job that that is like that they're just not going to care, um like that you're self-taught. They're not going to be looking for a degree. They just need a developer. They are not going to care that you have 50 projects. I promise you. I promise you. Nobody's looking at those. And then you can't even fit them all onto your resume, which is the only thing that they're going to look at. A lot of the time, they are not going to look at your resume. Like, they're not going to look at your GitHub page. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not, because you know how these people get this? Most of the time, you get invited to a meeting by like HR about doing a interview for a person, and you're like this senior person, the hiring manager, right? The hiring manager is already, they're not just hiring, they are doing all kinds of other things, right? They're working on their own projects. They probably are the head of the team, right? Or one of the higher ups on the team. So like they have to, be available for the junior and mid-level developers and stuff like that, right? And they have their own tasks. Nobody is checking out your GitHub. a lot of the time when a person walks into an interview with you, they are looking at your interview paper, your resume, from their desk to the meeting room on their phone. Or if they had it printed out, then they'll take it or whatever. Or yeah, if they have a copy or so, whatever. But they're like, nobody's like spending that much time on you, right? It's like you're a dime a dozen. Everybody wants to change careers and land a 6-figure job, right? Like, who doesn't? So just keep in mind that you build out, if you do just keep following all these tutorials, building all kinds of apps, it's not helping you. It's not. I'll tell you that right now because there's so many things that somebody can do at this point in their path, at the very beginning of their path, where they end up getting distracted and they just, I don't know, like they don't actually end up following through. Like, I know that because I'm like that. There's so many things that I wish that I would do, right? And I don't just focus, and nobody's telling me exactly what I should just be focusing on. I'm getting, stuff from every single different direction. But I'm telling you right now, focus on this. It will save you time, and it will give you less reasons to procrastinate if you're like me. That. All right. Next, what do we want to talk about? Well, we haven't really talked about a whole lot. Now, I kind of had a debate on how to teach you guys this, because this is actually a much more confusing way to learn how to code than the way that I am not 100% sure if I should teach you or not, because the problem is that you are going to need to know this, and you're probably going to need to know this stronger than you need to know the other thing. So this is called Swift UI. Pay attention, please. Don't make these mistakes. It's just my OC. It's just it's just one of those pet peeves, I hate it. Please don't make this mistake. Swift is a programming language. It's what runs your it is your code. It is your code. It's not what runs. It is your code. Your code is written in Swift, the same way that you write stuff in Microsoft Word. That is English, right? Okay. Swift UI, no space. Swift UI. That is a framework. We don't need to go into the differences of framework. You'll hear it being called a lot of different things. Just know that people just use them interchangeably. It's called framework, library, package. Just they're usually all the same thing. Swift UI is a framework that is a way for you to write code so that it can display what your code is telling it. It is essentially, when you use Swift, the programming language, that is the instructions of how to paint a picture. Swift UI is your brush and your paint. So you have to write the instructions, and then the brush and the paint will make it look a certain way. If that makes sense. I don't know. Anyways, two different things, very, very different things. And you have to be careful with you have AI now, which is really nice. But you still have to be careful with what you're searching for. And then if you do end up down a weird rabbit holes, or go down the wrong procrastinating path like I would, I would be like, oh, okay, well, what about what does web development have? Oh, okay, so they have JavaScript, and they have HTML or something like that. Like, I don't know, React Native or something like that. Like, you have, like, if you want to be able to compare these things, you have to understand that there's a difference between a language and a framework. The framework is how the language is kind of, oh fuck, I already gave the instructions thing. You just have to be the framework is a way of writing the programming language. It's like so you're giving instructions to the computer in a very specific way when you use a framework, and it does a lot of stuff for you so that you don't have to actually go too deep into the code and have to figure out how to put a color on a screen. Okay. All right. So next we have so that's Swift UI. We're importing Swift UI, so we need to use, right? Import. We're bringing it in. We have a struct, which is a structure of data, or yeah, structure of data. It is a object. You'll hear about struct and you'll hear about class. You'll hear about struct a lot more now that Swift UI is very popular, but classes are also very important. We'll cover the differences when we actually need a class, okay? All you need to know for right now, it's an object and it's a keyword, okay? Call this whatever you want. This can be called whatever you want, whatever, right? I think we even support emojis technically in Swift. Don't do that. But I think we do. Call it whatever you want. But whatever's here is how you're going to reference it in other documents. So we had our other document over here, our food picker app. Remember I told you the main thing? Content view. Whatever you wrote back over there is how you reference it here. That's how you call it. That's one of the vocabulary. That's one of the things that we say. We call. We're going to call this. We're going to initialize this. We're going to initialize means to like create. Okay. Then we're just saying that the semicolon, I think whenever you see it, is saying what the type is. So you have the name of whatever you're referring to, whatever you want to call the thing. You have it here, and then you can use a semicolon to say of type. That's how I read it in my head. Content view of type view. So that's just saying that it's going to be a view, and a view is just the way that Swift UI is telling us how to create screens on iOS, or on an iPhone, I mean. Then we have our body. Our body is a variable. That's what var stands for, variable. That means that it can change the value of it. The value that's on the inside of body can change. Then we have some view. I don't actually know how to describe this. I would say that I don't know it, but I kind of do. So I kind of know it, but I don't know it well enough to explain it. So anytime I don't know something, just know that you don't necessarily have to know it. Some is a way of, it pulls in so many different concepts. But I think it pulls in generics, and it allows you to return an object that is generic or something like that. And this is just like this. So it's going to be the same type. So this and these are the same types. Both of them are views. The fact that this has view in its name it means nothing. Remember, you call this whatever you want. This is a very specific object. We're saying it's of type view. That means it has to exist, right? Of type some view, right? And then in here, this is how we're building out the screen. So my preview paused over here. We'll restart it. Octopus, oysters. All right, so let's see. Okay, so if you guys want to read this with me, so we have a V stack, vertical stack, right? So vertical, virgin stand up and down, virgin stand up, you know, vertical, horizontal, horizontal, right? So then image, we have an image that has a system name. And in this case, it kind of is saying of type, but like not really. So how do I describe this? I have to think about how to describe this. But this is the call site. And what that means is that, dang, may need to go to functions first. I don't know. Anyways, this is essentially, just look at this as we see the parentheses, and that's saying how do we create the thing on the left side. In this case, we want to create an image, right? Parentheses. So if we want to create an image, one way to do it is to provide system name. System name allows us to put in whatever we want inside of quotes. It's called a string. If we were to hold command and then we were to click on this, the system name, it might take us to where the code lives. You can't actually see all the code because that's like private to Apple, but it allows you to see that we're using the initializer. That means we're trying to create that object. In this case, we're trying to create the image, remember? And we're going to create it by saying that it has a parameter name. So everything that we pass into a function or into an initializer, because an initializer is a function, whenever we pass something into a function, those things that we pass in are called parameters. And each parameter, you can give the parameter itself a name to refer to it inside of your code. You'll see that a little bit more when we actually write a function. And this is the part where we do see the actual of type as I was trying to explain it. Since it was the call site, we don't see the actual type, which is of type string. String just means a string of characters, because characters is a type. So each individual character inside of a string or a sentence, word, whatever, each individual letter is a character. And though that string of characters is called a string. So we would need to pass in a string of characters, a string in here. And we do that by, we represent that by doing double quotes. I forgot what Dr. Evil even said there. All right. We have a couple of modifiers down here. Don't worry about these right now. This is just ways that we want to modify this object, whatever the object is the last dot goes to. So that last dot goes all the way up there, right? There's nothing in front of it. You might not have these dots. Don't worry about these dots. It's just showing all the spaces for me. And the little thing, the little hook on the end too. It shows white. It's called white space. I like it on. Anyways, this last dot goes all the way over here. It goes all the way to the end of this parentheses right here. And then this dot goes to the end of this parentheses. So it's really just a long chain. This entire thing is just a long chain. If you want to look at it this way, this is what it really means. It's a really long chain. Do your chain hang low? Look at that. So that's what it really looks like. But we want it to look. We want to be able to easily. It's easier to read this, right? And we don't have to scroll and we don't have to move our screen. It's just more. It looks more concise this way, as opposed to just one long runoff line. It's not easy to see everything at a glance. So we're changing the scale of the image to large. So this is, believe it or not, this is actually showing the image as being pretty large. And then looks small, but whatever. And then the foreground style is the color tint. So the tint is blue by default. Okay, so that's why it's blue. Then we have a different object. So this was one object that had modifiers on it. Here's another object that doesn't have modifiers on it. Right? So then it's text that takes in a string to create a text, right? So how do we make a string? We use our double quotes and we write in there. Bam. And that's how we have it. Remember, we're in a V stack, vertical stack, so up and down. It's on top. Whatever first in is the first thing at the top. So the image is on top of text. The image is on top of text. Okay? And then we have to close everything with the parentheses. Okay, this is how we create a VStack. We use curly braces. When we're calling functions like this, we use parentheses. It's very important that you stick to these. It's not optional on which one goes where. And then lastly, because this goes to the last thing, that's actually at the end of VStack, right? So VStack comes all the way over here. So this is where the padding is. So there's actually padding around this. And we might even be able to demonstrate that if we do a background with a color of, let's do red. That's my debug color. So look at that. And remember that I told you that you could do like comments, and that your comment will make it so that things don't run. And we could do that with command / or the question mark. You do that now. You see how it changes over here in that preview screen? That's pretty cool, right? So command / bam, padding makes it bigger. It's padding it starts from here's the center out. So it goes out, and then we're doing the background behind the padding. So it's going to actually give the padding a background. I think if we were to change the order of these, it actually changes how the code works. Yeah, see, I change the order, we get a different result. Very important. Very important to pay attention in Swift UI, the order of things, because you might be doing something wrong. If you think you're doing everything right, you have something that's on one screen and you're just trying to copy it on the other, and you typed it all out and you can't figure out why it's being different. It could possibly be you did something out of order. Okay. Thank you for teaching me block pattern on Flutter. Yeah. I'm actually surprised that it's still helping you guys. To be honest. Like, I mean, I guess I did do that back when I think Qubit maybe just came out. Or it seemed like it was relatively new at the time. I don't know. But yeah, I'm happy that I could help. Glad that it's still helping people. Now, I want to take a pause right here. It's already been a long time, and I don't know how long it's going to. I don't know how many people are going to be able to even see this, but there's an important thing to me, and it's actually the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right here today. It is I first of all, this is what I intend to do. My plan is to try to help my family as much as I can by using code. And that is in many different types of ways. One of the ways that I plan on helping my family using code is by teaching some of them how to code themselves. So, my cousin wants to learn how to code. My stepson wants to learn how to code. And yeah, anybody else that wants to learn how to code. Because just, my Aunt Amanda, she was taking care of my grandma, and she's also, yeah, she like primarily handled everything for my grandma, and she also handled a lot at at my grandpa's repair shop. So she really helped out the family, um, and it's because maybe we're not we maybe like if she was able to code, then maybe that could have brought in additional income to the house or something, and it would have been a lot less stressful than what she had to deal with. Well, and my Aunt Amanda, she is 38 and I'm 33. So my Aunt Amanda is 5 years older than me. Really close. And last Sunday, she passed away out of nowhere. Well, I don't know if my family has learned yet, but I still don't know the cause of death. As of like Wednesday, they still didn't know the cause of death. I haven't checked in, so I haven't checked to see if they know the cause of death. But um, from what I've heard described happen, it really just sounded like it might have just been too much stress, or it could have been a number of other things. But in my head, if she knew how to code, if I would have taught her how to code, she might not have been stressed as much and would have been able to provide for not only herself and her husband, but also for her family. And just because she was willing to take on that burden. And I I'm still dealing with like the grief part, but I am doing what I can, and I'm trying to teach myself lessons from her death. One of which being to make sure that I'm helping out my family in ways that I can, and that's what this is all for. It's long, it's drawn out, it's probably boring, but it's a resource that I can point my family to and say, like, it's this is as easy as I can make it for you, and it's holding your hand the whole entire way until you get a job, and that's what I want to do. So I wanted to put that out there. Rest in peace to my Aunt Amanda. I was pretty close to her, actually, and um, I wanted to show you guys her GoFundMe. I don't know what this is. We're about halfway to the goal. I'm going to put this link in the chat. If you have it, you can donate. If you feel like it, you don't have to. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to uh, give everybody the opportunity to donate. If that's what you want to do. Let me see if I can paste it in here. There we go. So, thank you. Um, Thank you, Amanda. And because thank Amanda, because she's the reason why I'm doing this right now. So yeah. All right, back to it. Um, Next, what we want to do is we want to start changing a couple of things in here, right? So we're able to run this like it. Notice that it. Oh man, I should have showed you before. So there's something to notice here, right? So we're in the simulator. This is how the code. It the code is actually running. All the code that you wrote is actually running. That's not actually true. It, anything. How did I say this? The reason why I say that is because like the code that you actually wrote is running, but if you made a mistake in like 3 pages into the app, like I had to click, 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 or tap, 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 and then like 3 pages later, it crashes or something breaks. That's because your code for the different screens doesn't actually run until it's called, and it doesn't, and it's usually not called until it's actually on the screen, or else your phone, your app would be extremely slow, or it would never start up. Like it's not efficient for the app. It would burn up the user's battery. Essentially, it would take too long, or it would take too many resources trying to build the entire app all at once on the user's phone like that. Like that's such a waste of energy. Why would you do that when you don't, maybe they're only going 2 pages deep? You don't need all 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 pages deep to be loaded, right? Okay, so what I wanted to show you is that what's happening over here is a preview, remember, like painted on. And this is supposed to be kind of like real time. What we could do is, if we wanted to, actually it's easier to see this change. If I were to type in green right here and I were to click it, also depending on how new or old your computer might be, it might take a much longer to show. You might not even get the whole entire pop-up sometimes. So just know, sometimes it sucks because Xcode takes a lot of resources. And if you're on a super old computer, which, you know, old computers is fine, you can still, I made it with an old computer, by the way. It was like 6 years old at the time, so it was okay, right? No, was it 10? No, hold on. Let's see. I got it when I went to college, so I was like 19. Then I got my first job in 2016. I graduated in 2009, so like 7 years. So it's like, yeah, it was like 6 or 7 years old. So it was like, and I made it. So don't let that stop you. And the computers that they build now, they're making things a lot more compatible. I'm actually surprised. Anyway, let's see. Oh, okay. So for the preview, color.green, nothing shows right here. And it says because preview is paused, right? So if we hit this, it'll restart. So then it'll rerun our code. And then we could even change it to like purple, right? And see how it updates like in real time, right? Remember, it's all paint, so it may not work exactly. But what I wanted to draw your attention to was like on the simulator, it's not updating, right? The reason for that is because this, again, it's just paint. It's doing its best to read what's trying to go on, or like it's doing its best to display what's going on. And that's about it. You can even get some functionality to work in here. Would not trust it at all. Would not trust it. You're much better off testing in the simulator itself than in the preview. But if you want to just keep practicing and you want to keep going and see as far as you can get in just the preview, because this is probably slowing down your computer too, then that's fine. I'm just saying, like, you definitely need to run it in the simulator every once in a while and then on a real device before you actually put it on the App Store, because it might not be working. A Rakon. Dang. Well, thank you for watching from over there. I'm from the States, so they don't even teach us where y'all are at. School's bad out here. Um, let's see. Okay, so all your code is running on here, right? Caveat, because not running until you actually hit it, but it's on here. It's actually running on here. You have to rebuild and package all your code. You have to hit the run button again, so it could send all the changes back over to the simulator. This is similar to having updates on your phone, right? See how it's purple? This is similar to having updates on your phone. Like sometimes, like Instagram, for example, or whatever social media that you might be on, um, they'll have an update. Like you update your iPhone or your whatever, you update your app, and hey, they have a new feature on there. Well, guess what? That feature needed to be put into the code that was being sent to your phone. So once the code was all packaged, the new code was all packaged on your phone, they said, hey, you need to update. So then they update the code, and then bam, you have that new feature that they just coded in there. That's how it works. All right. From here, let's see. We're going to. It's getting kind of like, I don't really feel like going much further. So, since I'm kind of tired of doing this, we're gonna run through it real quick, and I'll try to explain it. And then, if you actually care about like going through a series where you learn everything from the beginning, then you can you can just leave a comment. Yeah, you leave a comment. I'll definitely continue this, but if you could give me any feedback, that would be great. Any feedback, because I would like to make the content as good as I can. So, yeah, let's run through it real quick. We're going to start by deleting everything inside the body block. I'm gonna highlight it all by clicking and holding and dragging up. Bam, highlight it all. Hit enter. That's gonna line break from here, which puts us on here, right here. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to create a VStack again. So I guess we didn't have to delete that. We're going to hit a VStack again. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold up. VStack. So start typing it out. Try to keep capitalized if you can. Not really that important in Xcode, but it's good practice. So you find the first one, you hit enter. You're going to hit space. Then you're going to do an open curly brace like that. You're going to hit enter. It should complete everything for you. But all it did was add a ending curly brace, and it puts your cursor on the next line right here with an indent, so that the indents are just used so that we can see the code. It actually doesn't matter in Swift. You can actually do any indenting you want. But it's common to do an indent with a tab in Swift code. That's what's common. So we'll start with a VStack, and so remember vertical. We want to lay things out vertically. What we're going to do is we're going to put a text. We've already seen that. That's how we made hello world earlier, right? Or that's how the code was earlier. We're going to open our parentheses because we want to open that. We want to create a text object, right? It takes in a string of characters. You remember that? And then we type in whatever we want, right? Let's put in burgers. right? And then what we want to do is we want to have a button. We're going to create that button, and actually we could do it like this. So like if you're going to start typing it, feel free to fill it all the way out and type it exactly how it's supposed to be. Capital B, lowercase UTTON, right? And then what we want to do is we want to choose one of these. These are like all the initializers. This is how you would create a button. These are all the options. The one that I want is going to be, it's going to be this one. And if I hit right, it'll drop down where it gives me two different versions. It doesn't really matter which version you choose, but I am just going to choose this one, just so you know. It doesn't really matter, but just so you know, that's what I'm choosing. You can choose any of them, and if it doesn't look like this, if you choose the wrong one, you can still just go back and copy the way that my code looks, and then it should be exactly the same. You shouldn't run into any problems. So button, I'm going to say randomize. The image, I'm actually going to delete this. We're going to delete all this. And when we get to this spot, what we're going to do is if we look at action, that's the parameter name of type, and then this fancy type. This is a fancy type called a closure. Okay. A closure is just a function. Okay. We haven't gone over functions yet, but it's just a block of code. We'll go over closures in a little bit, or we'll go over functions real quick. In a second. Okay. But right now we're just going to, we're going to hit enter. It should adjust your code to look like this. If it didn't, you're still okay. Remember, you just copy what is on my screen and it will work. That's something that doesn't happen when you do web development or Android development. You can't just copy what's on the screen sometimes. Sometimes you have to go figure out yourself, and that's the hard part. Okay, so now I'll delete that. So we have a button that says randomize. What we want to do is we want to put the code that is going to run when that happens. So what we'll do is we just want to print it out to the console down here. This is where we can see what is kind of happening inside of our app, and it's also where we can say, where we can kind of test to see, hey, is something working the way that I expect it to? Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to print. We're going to open the parentheses, and then we're going to open the quotes. The quotes should automatically finish that. If it doesn't, again, just copy what's on my screen. So we'll say print randomizing. Literally put whatever you want in here, right? Whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's a string of characters. We just want to, all we're saying is we want to tap a button, and the button should say randomize on it. And when you tap the button, it should execute this code. And this code, all it does is it prints whatever's inside this string. Okay. I understand that there's no code here for it to be doing all kinds of crazy, like it might sound like it's doing a lot. It is. That's what the framework is for. That's what Swift UI is for. All kinds of stuff are happening. Button called randomize is executing this block of code. All kinds of stuff under the hood is happening. It's still happening. It's really actually just this easy, because frameworks make it that easy. That's why Swift UI is very powerful and makes it easier to learn some concepts for programming. Okay, so far we have this button. When we tap it, it should do randomizing. If we go ahead and update this, we can actually see over here. I don't know what would happen if we hit randomize here. Yeah, nothing. But let's go ahead and run this, because this is attached to the simulator. There might be a way to Might be able to attach it to. Oh yeah, look at it. It worked. Previews do work. That's pretty cool. See that? Okay. And then if we do the executable, which is our simulator, if we hit randomize, look at randomizing poop. Yeah, see. So that's showing that our button is working as expected, right? Has all the animation and all that stuff all built in. That's what a framework does for us. A UI specific framework does for us. Frameworks in general can be about anything. It could be about UI. It could be about like accomplishing a specific goal or a task or something to do in your app, like scanning or something like that, right? Payment, stuff like that. That's what frameworks are for, to make things easier for you. So now, what we want to do is we actually want to, instead of just always doing burgers or like just having random text right here, what I would like to do is I would like, when I tap this, I want it to just make burgers, right? Like I want it to show burgers. Like when I tap it, like burgers shouldn't have already been on the screen before I hit randomize, right? I hit randomize, then burgers should have popped up, right? So I want to give it that functionality. In Swift UI, the way to do that is you have to use a keyword called state. It's at the at symbol, state. Looks like this. We're going to use a variable. Remember var, variable. We need to give it a name. This is our structure. You have a variable, use the var keyword, then you have to give it a name. The name is going to be, we'll call it food. And it's going to be of type string. Because of where this is inside of the function, where this line is, we do need to give it a default value, and you can do that by hitting equals and then an empty string, right? So it's just the quotes, nothing's in there just yet, right? So the equals is setting it, so it's not saying it's not like a question of whether this is true or not. It is saying this is the variable food of type string. We are setting its value to an empty string. There's nothing in here. There's no characters. There's characters now. No more characters. Empty string. All right. So what we want to do is, instead of just always showing burgers here, we want to show whatever food, whatever the value of food is, whatever's inside the actual string here. This is just a box. We want to look inside the box, and we want to show what's inside the box here, right? The way that we do that is we have to enter in the name of our variable here, food, like that. So now, what do you think would happen if we were to run this? Like, let's go ahead and give it a run. We'll hit the play button. We don't see burgers anymore. We hit randomize. Now it says randomizing, but burgers didn't pop up. Well, we didn't write the code in there for burgers to pop up, right? So like we gotta do that first. Ugh. All right. So if we wanted to make that happen, what we need to do, because what it's doing here, the text is just displaying whatever's inside of that string, whatever that value is, it's just showing that value. We need to change that value. So what we can do is we can say food is equal to, and we have to give it the same type of value, so it has to be of type string. food is going to be burgers, right? So now our variable food is being set to the value of a string with the characters burgers in it. Okay? Let's go ahead and run that. So now, when we hit randomize, hey, come on. Okay. If you just did that in real time, if you did that, if you've been following along, boy, unfortunately, you might not be able to show this to anybody because nobody's going to think that's impressive, but you just did that. I was super impressed when I did it. You're fucking awesome. You're awesome. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. That's how I felt. I was like, damn, I just did something. I was so happy. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard being a programmer because it's like you want to talk to people. Nobody gets it. Unless you talk to another programmer. Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty cool, but it's not randomizing, right? So, if we want to be able to randomize it, there's a couple of things that have to happen, right? We have to be able to have a list of different foods that we want to pick from, right? Then we have to, once we hit the button, we have to say, okay, we hit the button, we have a list of different foods to choose from, pick a random one, and then display that random one. So we have a couple of steps. So what I should probably be doing, and what I'm going to tell you to do, because this would probably make you so much better, and it would actually make your code probably a lot better, is to like document every step, right? I don't do it. To be honest, I don't. I highly recommend that you do this because this will allow you to walk back through and understand what you were trying to do, because what's going to happen is, if you're like me, you'll be excited about something and you'll be on it all the time so you won't forget something, and then either something comes up or you just kind of lose motivation, and then eventually your motivation kind of picks back up again, and then you get back in there and then you're like coding again. You're just like, damn, I don't even remember what happened. Or, you just been coding for a long time and you just, okay, well, I wrote the code nice enough. Problem is that when you go back in there, you're just kind of like, it takes more time. Like, that is like, a lot of times when you see a programmer working, they're just kind of looking at the code, right? They're like, because it's all just thinking, and then you have to translate what you think might be a fix for the problem, and then convert your ideas into code, right? So it's just it's probably going to be easier on you if you start writing things out. I think I'm going to try to start writing things out. Anyway, let's go over the steps that we need to do first. So we need to do, and let's do it in comments, right? So we need to do list of different foods, right? Because I'm a big back, so we definitely talk about foods today. Then what we have to do is we have to pick a random number, then use the random number to select a food, then we need to display the food. I've been really actually trying to do like this part. Like I haven't been doing it in code, but like directions to myself. I've been doing this actually. That's why I kind of tell you to like write it out, because it's been kind of helping me. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a list of different foods. The way that we can do that, since the list isn't necessarily going to change, right? We're not going to do anything to change the list. We'll just do it's called a constant. It's let. Let is I don't know why it's called let. I couldn't tell you. But let is a constant. It just means that it cannot change. The value inside the box is always that. A variable, you look inside the box, it might be something, you close the box, you open the box again, it's something else because somebody else might have changed the value. Okay? Constants, lets, cannot change. Always going to be the same. Okay? So let a food list of type, right? And what we want to do is we want to have a bunch of different strings, right? So first we had our burger strings, our burger as a string, right? But we need to have multiple strings, and we wouldn't put all of the different foods inside of the same string, because we need to be able to like have individual things shown, not the whole thing shown, right? So what we want to do is we want to have a group of strings, or an array. An array is just a collection of different a collection of objects. A lot of the time, though, those group of objects are of the same type. Okay, so the way that we represent this idea in code is that we do an open square brace, and then we type the type in there. So we have several different types. String is the one that we've been working with so far, so we're going to keep working with string. So of type, we're going to continue to follow the same pattern here. Okay, we're going to set our value, our variable, or our constant, right? We're going to set its value to something. Now, the square brace is a way to represent arrays in the Swift programming language. So we can open a square brace, we can hit enter, it'll auto complete the closing one. Ideally, it's supposed to. And then we just put in a bunch of different strings in here. So we can do burgers, right? And we have to separate one string from another. So we close the string, right? Burgers, and then we have to put a comma to say, okay, on to the next item. So burgers, on to the next item. And ideally, since the list is going to be long, we're going to just hit enter, just so that we could do a line break. We could continue out this way, right? But I don't know, it just looks sexier, prettier if you it just looks sexier if you do it this way. I don't know, man. Just copy what I'm doing. Know that I've thought about a lot of different things, and that we're doing a lot of the stuff this particular way for a reason. Okay, so burgers, I don't know, pasta, I don't know, pizza, sandwich, I don't know, something like that. So after each object, or after each string, make sure you put a comma, and then we could do a line break. Pasta, pizza, you can keep going. Just make sure that each one is covered by a comma, because if you miss one along the way when you're doing it, you get this error. Now usually you'd be able to hit the red thing, and it'll fix it. Careful with that. Xcode will get you. It doesn't always know what it's doing. Also, I don't know if you can put a comma at the end in Swift. Looks like it is allowed now. Depending on which version of Swift, you may or may not be able to do this. So just careful with that. So now we have our list of food. So that's the first one. We're done with that. Um, then we have pick a random number. So how do we come up with a random number? Um, and what we were going to want to do is we're going to actually do both of these two. We're going to do all three of these tasks inside of a function. So let's go ahead and create a function real quick. We use the keyword func, F-U-N-C, in Swift function, and then you could give it a name, whatever you want. For this, we're gonna do. I'll just say randomize food. That seems pretty descriptive. Ideally, your function names are descriptive. For functions, I think I was telling you, just like for initializers, you have to put in everything that your function, your object needs in order to be created or to be ran. A function is ran. All the parameters that you need inside of those parentheses. For us, we don't need to put anything inside of our parentheses because we're not passing it any parameters or any arguments. Then we open the curly brace. We hit enter. We close the curly brace. Okay, and then we're going to try to do all three of these things inside of our code. So we have our function named randomize food, doesn't take in any arguments, and we're writing our code in here. Right now we only have comments which are not ran because they have the 2 slashes in front of it. So how do we pick a random number? So we can do it using, I believe, integer. Int is a type. It's kind of like string, but it's just a different type of type, right? It's just a signed integer value type. That's what it says in the thing down there. Yeah, so int is just the way to represent a whole number. Int dot, I think random is what we want. I actually don't know. I don't know how to do this on the fly, to be honest. So let's find out. So we have int. We're doing int dot randomize, and that will actually give us an integer. So if we option and click on it, we can actually see the signature, another vocabulary word, the signature of your function. So we have a function. Static just means that we don't need to put any like parentheses in front of it before we call it. It's just we're going to use a dot. In the future, we'll go over static, but all you need to know is that all it's saying is when we call it, we need to say the type. The type is integer. Static means we could just use a dot. We don't need to use the curly the parentheses. So integer dot random. Random is the name of the function. That's a parameter argument name. It has 2 names in Swift. Makes it more English-like, I guess. In range, the range is of type of range, and self with a capital S means the type that you're passing to it. So random can be used on different things, and self is just whatever type that you pass into it. In our case, we're passing in an int. So we're going to get a random integer in the range of integers. It has to be within a range of integers. And then it will return that type, int in our case. Okay? So to represent a range in Swift for integers, we have to do we'll start with 0. I'm going to talk about something there, and then we have to use this very particular it's called an operator. It's similar to equals up here. That's an operator. We're using a different type of operator here. So it's dot or period, and then the the less than character. I just think of alligator. I don't know. That's what I think of. Um, and how many do we have here? One, two, three, four. So we want it from 0 to 4. Okay. So now we're saying we want an integer that is randomized from 0 to 4. That's what we want to pick, because in arrays, remember the square braces. I thought I was going to be speeding through this, man. I don't know. I don't know. I thought we were almost done. Turns out I have a lot to say. I've been doing this for like 10 years. A decade. It's been a long time. A decade ago, I was like in the same spot that you were in. Yeah. It doesn't take a decade. It took me like 6 months to get hired. I was making 3 times what I was making before. Just right off the bat. Bam. 3 times what I was making. I was making like, no, maybe, is that right? Maybe it was just 2 times. I'm sorry. It was 2 times. It was 2 times. I was making under 30,000 a year at the restaurant. I got my first job as I freelanced. I could tell you about the story some other day. It turns out the person was just an entrepreneur. They wanted to build something. I said I could build it. I said I'd do it for $60,000 a year. Bam. 60,000. I thought I was, and that was being underpaid in LA. Like I was underpaid. 3 times or 2 times what I was making. I'm sorry, 2 times. 2 times what I was making. $60,000 a year, just bam. That's crazy. Anyway, yeah. So we have our string for arrays, an array of strings. This is item number 0. Arrays are what's called 0 indexed. All it means is that the first item in the array is a 0. So this is 0, item 1, item 2. You get the point. So we're saying 0 all the way up to 4, but we don't want to include 4, because if we include 4, then that would be the item that's down here, not this item. This is item number 3. 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So item number 4 should be right here, but there isn't. If you try to grab an item that is not inside that array, it will kill your app. Kills your app. Don't do that. Be careful. This is what gets a lot of people. It will eventually get you. Just be careful. Okay, now, usually it's not like this straightforward though. It's like you do end up grabbing outside, but like you don't understand why it's outside. Like it shouldn't be outside. Like I'm using the numbers and for some reason it's still grabbing outside. And then you have to figure out like what's actually causing that. Ooh, those are fun days. Just know that when you do run into that, like, oh, like this is what he was talking about. I get it. It happens to all of us. You'll figure it out. Okay, so so what we're gonna do is we're doing a constant, because once it randomizes that and grabs that number, we don't need to change it anymore. So we could call it my, and then we're gonna use something called camel case number, and we're gonna set the value to what's on the right side of the equal sign. So we're making a constant named my number, and we're using camel case. That just means that every new word after the first word has a capital letter. That makes it a little bit easier to read than if everything was all like, what is min number? Min number. So my number instead is like better. All right. From there, now that we have a random number picked, now we have to use that random number to select the food. So we're going to do another constant. We're going to say selected food is equal to, we need to grab one of these foods out of the food list. So we need to reference the food list. So is equal to the food list. Well, what about the food list? Oh, I'm trying to select a value from that list. So we'll pass in my number. And we'll actually call it my random number to make it even more apparent for camel case and for what the purpose of this value is, right? Or you could just call it random number. But I just like the fact that it says my random number so that you can see like, oh, like my is not like a thing in programming. So when I see my random number, it's just showing me, oh, I could just call it whatever I want. So my random number, if we pass it in as a square brace, similar to how we were doing for an array, this is kind of like when you pass in an integer into braces like this, where it's referencing the array itself, and then you put square braces on the right side of it and then pass in a number, it's going to select that item inside of the array based off of the index that you give it. So we came up, remember I told you that it's 0 base index, 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to select based off of the index. So if we pass in a 3 into the array, we do 0, 1, 2, 3. This is the one that it's going to select, sandwich. So now my random is going to be one of those 4 numbers. We pass it in, and that will give us the selected food. Once it's selected, we don't need to change it. That's why it's let. Lastly, we need to display the selected food. Now remember, we're already displaying whatever the value is inside of food, right? We showed that by doing burgers. So what we want to do is we want to kind of copy that code. So we'll say food is equal to selected food, right? So now we're setting the value of food. We're setting that value to the value of selected food. So now whatever the selected food is, it should display where the burgers is displaying. Now let's see what happens when I run this, right? So we have our randomize food function here. We hit randomize. We got burgers. Burgers. It says randomizing. What's going on? It's not really randomizing it. Reason for that is that our block of code that's running is not making this function actually run. It's not calling that function. So to call the function, what we need to do is we either need to put down here, or we need to get rid of this old code. This is old code. I'm going to comment it out just so that we can see that it was there. I don't want to delete it. You can feel free to delete it. I think it's better if you leave it there just so that you can remember, oh yeah, we commented this out because that was no longer needed. So we do randomize food, we call it. So now when I hit that button, instead of printing out randomizing, it's going to actually call this function. Since we didn't have any parameters, nothing was passed to it. So then it runs this code here, and that's how we know. Then we should theoretically see our app work as expected, right? Randomize pizza. We haven't gotten that yet. randomize, pizza, sandwich, burgers, sandwich, burgers, pizza, sandwich, burgers. Okay, so you see, pasta. Yeah, we got pasta a couple times. So we got that in there. And if we want it, we could even do the print statement down here. We could do that same print statement. We can say randomizing again, right? We could do it right there, or we could even move it up. If you want to move it up, you just hit Command and Option, and then you do the left or the right square brace. The left one goes up, the right one goes down. And you can move it up like that. Command and Option being held down. So if we wanted to say we're picking a random number, we say randomizing. Then we could even do print. We could say selecting random number or random food. And then lastly, we could say updating food. And when we run that, now whenever we run this function, since it's going to run all of this code, we should see all of those print statements. So randomize pasta, randomizing, selecting random food, updating food. So you see that all the code is ran. That's the easy way to figure out, did my code actually run? Yeah, those print statements. So I'm going to stop there, but if you are following along, if you actually got this far, one, congratulations, but two, understand that this tutorial is not something to just watch and then like you go off and then you just watch another tutorial. Like, what is that? Like, no. If you watch this tutorial from the start, you should have saw that I said the more impressive thing to do is just to keep working on the same app. As boring and as annoying as it's going to get, because there's going to be times where you run into stuff that you didn't expect, things that you don't understand, things that you have to figure out how they work. That's what programming is. That's what you're learning how to fix. You're learning how to solve problems. You're learning that something's happening. It's supposed to be acting one way. It's not acting that way. How do I fix that? You do it by like going down that rabbit hole and solving one little problem at a time. Okay, how do I make it do this? How do I make it do that? How can I get a different error? Right? That's what programming is. So instead of like going through and like watching all of this, not having done any of it, go through and actually do it. Then once you get to this point, do not stop. This is not all the foods you know. I don't want you to just do all the foods I want you to try to do all the foods you know. Now, I want to show you one thing if you do choose to take this challenge and you do want to get a new job that you're making 6 figures a year. Like, imagine that. Imagine like how much your life would be different if you had 6 figures a year. That's pretty good, right? So like, I want to show you this. Broccoli. I don't know if that's how you spell broccoli. I don't know. I don't know. Pancakes. Next we're gonna do apples, whatever. We're going to run this code again, and I want to show you something because I do want you to take the challenge of knowing like, oh, like, okay, let's see how many I can actually name. If you do choose to do that, then you'll actually make 6 figures. I'm telling you. If you do choose to do that, you do choose to do the to continue to build on this, because this is where I'm just gonna pick up after. Like, I'm just like, that's where I'm gonna pick up at. Okay, so we're gonna randomize pasta, randomize pizza, and you can see down here that the code is running. Um, this is getting smaller over here, right? This is getting smaller. So we know that more stuff is being printed out to the console. We randomize, randomize, randomize. Let me know when you see broccoli, pancakes, or apples, right? Just let me know. None, right? So the reason why it's not showing any of the new ones like broccoli, pancakes, or apples is because of our code. This is a bug in our code. This is what you have to run into all the time. You coded something, it was working, you got it to work. Now you changed what was working, right? You changed what was working, and what was working is no longer working the way that you would expect it to. What you thought was supposed to happen was when you changed this, it was going to show you broccoli, pancakes, or apples, right? But when you added more to that list, it didn't show those. Well, why not? I ran it, I saved it, I did all these things. Well, no. The reason for that is you have to remember that we're creating a random number based off of these two. This is what's called hard coded numbers. So we start at 0 and we go all the way up to but not including. That's what this means. If we wanted to include 4, we would actually do just this dot dot dot. But what we actually want to do is up to and not including 4. Okay? Well, since we're hard coding here, it's only grabbing 0, 1, 2, and 3 because we're not including 4, right? So 4, 5, and 6 are not ever being selected in that randomized process. So the way that we make this dynamic so that it continues to work no matter how many foods we add to our array, you have to reference the thing that might continue to grow. And that thing that might continue to grow is our food list. So where the 4 was, what we want to do is we want to say our food list, because we're going to reference it, food list dot count. And if you look right here, it says count is of type integer, the number of elements in the array. That's exactly what we need. The number of elements that are in the array. Before, we had 4 elements in the array. Arrays are 0 index. That means we had 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we created a range between 0 and all the way up to, but not including 4. Now, what we are going to get is we currently have an array of 7, right? Well, it's going to give us the number of elements in the array, right, which is 7. And if we replace 0 all the way up to but not including, that part is very important to hear. All the way up to but not including food list.count, the number of elements in the array, all the way up to but not including 7, then that's 0 through 6 that we're able to select through. And we will not run into a crash. Food list.count. And that's how we make our code dynamic. So it's not just being hard coded to show one set thing. It's actually growing. So now when we do random apples right off the bat, burgers, pancakes, apples, sandwich. So we already hit burgers and we already hit apples. So we already know that it should be able to pull from each and every one of these indexes. So you should see a little bit of all of them in there. Okay? Another thing that you can do if you want to continue to learn and make these things dynamic is you can make another list of colors. Let food color be of type array of color. Color is a type that's provided to us by the SwiftUI framework that essentially just gives us a color. And we can do an array like this, and we can do color dot black. We could do color dot blue. Color dot red. And maybe this should be like green, right? Green. Or yellow. Right, red, blue, and yellow. Let's do that. Who cares? Whatever colors you want, you could do as many as you want. All you have to do is keep doing comma, color, dot, and then you can just go down and you can look at all the different colors that are given to you. Once you start getting to init, that's when you want to stop and go back up. Choose one of the ones that have like a meaningful name, and then just stick with those, okay? For right now. The other ones, go for it. Enter at your own risk. All right. Yellow, blue, and red. Okay, so then what we can do is we can do another function, randomize colors. And remember, you call it whatever you want. So then we just do all the same things, right? So we do let, we'll do random index, we'll do that is equal to int.random in range. So I just hit enter to do the autocomplete. We're going to do 0 all the way up to, but not including, and remember, we want this to be dynamic in case we decide to change the amount of colors that are in that array. Like, because if we took away like yellow, for example, and it could only be red or blue, and we left it at like 3, then we can accidentally select the second index, because select an index that's no longer, there's no value there, and that would cause a crash in our app. So remember, color list, what did we call it? Oh, food color. Color, I don't know why it's those colors, but food color dot count, right? So we want the number. There you go. So it looks like that. Also, just so you know, you don't actually need to have the additional white space between them if you don't want to. I think I usually do it like this. I don't know. I think I go between both, to be honest, but like you don't need the white space in between them for this. Anyways, so we have the random index, then we needed to get the random color, let random color, and actually the naming when you're writing a function is probably going to be closer to something shorter, like just color. So color will be equal to the food color, and then we access the index by passing in a random index, an integer, and then we say food color is equal to color. Also keep in mind that everything is case sensitive. Yeah, everything is case sensitive here. So if you had food color like this would not work for you. You'd get an error. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Cannot find food color in scope. What are you talking about? It is case sensitive for variable names. Food color is a let. So what that means is that, remember, let is a constant. That means that you can't change the value inside of it. So us trying to do this is like illegal. You're not supposed to do that. You can't do that. So if we go to well, this isn't even what we wanted to do. This is wrong for so many reasons. First of all, you can't change food colors. There should be food colors. I'm going to rename this actually. We're going to go to refactor. We'll go to rename. I right clicked on it after highlighting it. We're going to change this to color list. Okay, so now color list here, anywhere that I wrote food color is is updated with the exception of this for some reason. We want to do color list. Now this is wrong for the other reason that color list is an array of colors, and this is just a individual color. Those are considered two different types. A collection of something is not the same of just that something. They are not the same. They're not the same type. You can't do that. So what I actually wanted to do was to have a selected color. So what we want, because this is kind of how we kept which one was the string that we wanted to display. But right here, what we want to do is we want to be able to select the color that we want to display. So we'll do at state var background color, call it whatever you want, color, and that's going to be of type color clear. So at first it's going to have a clear background color, and then we're going to set the background color to the color that was randomly selected. Now remember, our function needs to be called if we want it to work. So we'll add it down here at the end of randomize food. We'll also randomize colors. So now we are going to be able to call this code. It's going to execute. The only last thing that we need to do is, even though that we came up with the array of colors, we're not using, or not this, even though we came up with the background color, right, which is currently clear, we're not actually using this anywhere. We're just setting it. We're not actually using it in our view, right? So what we need to do is change that, and the way that we can do that is we can put on the text, we can do text, and we can add a modifier. Remember that there's this background modifier, and inside the background modifier we can pass in our background color, which is our object up here at the top right there. So it's referring to this. So now if we run our code, we should actually get a background color on the text itself. Watch. So we randomize, and now I got blue, pancakes, pasta, still blue. Randomize, pancakes, yellow this time. Blue sandwich, pancakes, pancake. Can we get red? There we go. Sandwich red. Look at that. And remember, ordering matters in SwiftUI. So if we wanted to give it a bigger thing, we could do padding, just like we saw before, and we could run it again. Now there's different parameters and arguments that you could pass in here. So when you randomize, if you wanted to change the padding to make it like longer or taller or something like that, you can do that. But yeah, when we randomize, we get these different things. And now you can go through so for example, when I ask my girlfriend, what do you want to eat? She never knows. So you can actually come up with a list of all the things that you guys like to eat and just use the app. Oh, okay. You don't know what you want to eat? Okay, we're going to use my app. Okay, burgers it is. I'm not in the mood for burgers. Okay, then randomize it again. Broccoli. Apples. No. Apples. No. Pancakes. Actually, right? So like whatever's going to work for you, just like go with that. And yeah, it's just it's an app that's going to work. Now the goal is to keep improving on this. So with what we've done so far, this was already a lot. The goal is for you to keep going. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys about GitHub next time. But essentially, this is like the beginning. If you can get this far, you've already created an app that's already useful, right? Because now it's like you just put all the things that you can list, and then you can always go back and update this list for as long as you want, and it becomes even easier. What other things can you put in here that might not be food, right? you can go back, recreate this app, and it could just be like, oh, I don't know what I want to watch. I don't know what anime I want to watch. I don't know what kind of shoes to wear today. I don't know what shirt to wear. I don't know anything that could be like anything that you could make a decision on in your life that can be just randomly selected however you feel. You can just make that the thing, right? You can just go back and change the name of the list. You can change the name of the variable so that it matches with whatever you're working with, and you're good. You can actually start making apps already. But that's the hard part, is figuring out, okay, so now you just did something. If you did get this far, you have to keep pushing. Come up with anything that you can think of that can possibly be unique to you. It can still be the food, but like, what is something else that you might want to do? Like, maybe you want to make it so that the random item is always matched with a certain color. Like, burgers are always going to be yellow and apples are always going to be red. Like, how do you do that? That could be one of the features, right? So just start there. Try to improve it however you can. And you'll be on your way to becoming an iOS developer. So I want to thank all y'all for watching. And just like another reminder, let's see. There is this fundraiser for my aunt that just passed away on last Sunday. So if you can and you want to make a donation to my aunt, then yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate that, because she is the reason why we're doing the stream, because I want to be able to help people have better lives, and I have code. That's what I can share, and that's what I would like to teach y'all. So there you go. All right, I'll catch y'all later.